First up, another week, another high-profile exit at the New York Times. This time, it's writer and opinion editor Bari Weiss, who'd already gone public about her beef with the paper and stepped up the attacks on her way out the door. Adam has more.
There aren't many print journalists recognizable to the general public, but Bari Weiss might be an exception.
New York Times opinion writer and editor Bari Weiss is here.
Bari Weiss is back with us.
But she's no longer with the Times. This week, Weiss quit, claiming in a public resignation letter that she'd been bullied by her peers with no backup from her bosses.
She said they called her, quote, a Nazi and a racist for being a centrist.
The implication of her letter is that she's going to perhaps file suit. I hope that she does. I hope she gets discovery. And I hope that we all get to see what they were all saying about her.
Maybe they were talking about Weiss's defense of that infamous Tom Cotton op-ed, in which she accused colleagues of thinking feeling emotionally and psychologically safe was more important than free speech. Or maybe they were trying to square that with Weiss's own habit of accusing critics of Israel of anti-Semitism.
And that instinct of labeling people as anti-Semites as a way to push their opinions out, that is just as much of a pernicious part of this censorship culture as the things that she also decries.
In any case, becoming a poster child for so-called cancel culture probably won't hurt Weiss's career, even though technically, in this case, she canceled herself.
So, Adam, I felt completely sympathetic with her, and I felt she was right. What I don't agree with is walking out the door. I mean, the New York Times, for whatever she thinks of it at this point, is still probably the most powerful publication in the world. And that's the kind of voice that you need within. I mean, I know exactly what she's talking about. We've seen this culture spread throughout the news industry, but why leave?
Well, from a purely tactical point of view, I'm not sure I agree with you, Emily. I think that in certain circles, her stock will be greatly enhanced by the fact that she chose to walk out of the Times. She could go to the Wall Street Journal opinion page, which is very conservative, and be comfortable there. She could make a living on Fox News if she wants. Again, she's now this embodiment of what conservatives like to think is a pernicious liberal cultural tick. I am not sure that I'm as sympathetic to her on the merits as you are either. I do think there's a concern about some viewpoints being deemed too hot to handle. That's something that I'm more concerned about than a lot of people are. But she's such an imperfect messenger. She got her start at Columbia University leading crusades against professors who she thought were anti-Semitic because they criticized Israel. So she seems to think that she can identify a certain type of speech which is beyond the pale and that nothing else should be. And I just have a hard time with that.
Yeah, I agree with Adam. This was a career move by Bari Weiss. She's going to parlay this into something bigger and more lucrative than she ever would have been able to accomplish at the Times. And I think that Adam's point about the fact that Bari Weiss is a very sharp-elbowed person herself shouldn't be overlooked. I mean, she's somebody who gives as good as she takes. I must say, the Times sounds like a phenomenally unpleasant place to work. And I wouldn't have wanted to be in her position, but she was also criticizing in public younger colleagues who, because of the social media policy that the Times have, really weren't able to fight back. And so this is really, it's a mess. I'm a little bit sympathetic to Bari Weiss's position, but at the same time, I think that she knew exactly what she was doing when she quit.
Well, I agree. She was a flamethrower. She was hired to be a flamethrower, and she did, as you said, Dan, she gave as good as she gets. On the other hand, I do feel like, what was happening to her, the way she reports it on these internal Slack channels was pretty unconscionable. I mean, this is your colleagues, putting little axe emojis next to your face and really, calling you out in a way that's beyond uncollegial. Again, you're an op-ed columnist. Your job to some degree is to overreach a little bit. I won't defend everything she's written, but your job is to be provocative, to stir the pot, to overreach, to get people talking. And you do that accepting that you're going to get some kind of blowback, but to get that from your own colleagues and to get it in a way that really feels like, nasty and negative. I think she does probably have something lined up or something in mind, but I can see wanting to just call it quits.
Look, I think I echo a lot of the points that have already been made. The way I come down on this story is that it's almost a mix of truth and typical workplace grievances. I think there are a lot of things internally that are going on there, and it all is kind of getting mixed together. I wish that everybody had been wearing body cams so we could go back and look at the videotape and really get at the heart and the truth as to what's going on there. What I do hope will come from all of this is kind of this wave that we've been seeing, that it will cause more and more newsrooms to kind of look internally and say, how are we dealing with different voices within our newsrooms? How are conservatives feeling within an organization? Do they feel as if everyone is attacking them, or do they feel as if they have the freedom to really report and talk about some of the tough issues of the day? And that's what I hope will be kind of the final chapter of this kind of event. I
thought one of the most interesting things she said was about Twitter, though, that, Twitter is not necessarily a news organization. They don't belong to the New York Times, but she calls it the Thunderdome of Twitter that was really driving opinion by leadership at the New York Times. I felt like I believed her on that.
Well, the irony there, of course, is that when the Times got rid of their public editor, the rationale given was, well, we don't need one. We have Twitter. Yeah. So the Times signed up for this, and here we are.
I think everyone can, every organization is being influenced one way or another by social media, whether it's they're getting ideas from it or whether they're checking to see if what they're putting out there will really take off and be viral or popular. And I think that's sort of the downside of, social media. But I still think that there's a lot of good that can come from amplifying your news organization's message throughout these different outlets.
All right.
Andrew Sullivan of New York Magazine quit today, making very similar
this week. Yep, same thing. Said the same thing about New York Magazine.